Hello again, PCQI, and welcome back to our channel. So on this segment, we're going to be looking at BRCGS review, particular section of the senior management commitment and continual improvement. So the pattern on this one is I'm going to read some of the requirements on the BRCGS standards. If you need further information, please go to brcgs.com on their website. I'm going to include that link in the description part of this and any other research that we've done for this. Okay, PCQI, let's go. Here we go again. Senior management commitment and continual improvement. So first part of this is one of the description, or the primary description is the site senior management shall demonstrate that they are fully committed to the implementation of the requirements of the global standard food safety and to processes which facilitate continual improvement of food safety, quality management, and the site's food safety and quality culture. So that's the main requirement. So when you're putting this together, this program, which we talked about, are PFLs, programs, policies, procedures, or SOPs, and then you have your forms for records, as well as your lessons for your training materials or training materials. So this is going to be one complete program that I'm wrapping it up. So if I'm putting this together for you, these are some of the things that I'm going to put together, okay? So the next part of this requirement says the site shall have a documented policy which states that the site intention to meet its obligation to produce safe, legal, and authentic products to the specified quality and its responsibility to its customer. This shall be signed by the person with overall responsibility for the site, be communicated to all staff, include commitment to continuously improve the site's food safety and quality culture. So the first things first here, I know there were three main ones. I'm going to break some of them down. Signed by the person with overall responsibility for the site. So this is particularly signed by either the president, the CEO, or the designee. I've seen them sign by the owner themselves or the owner operator if your organization is structured in a different way. So it's got to be the senior management part of that commitment that I'm going to be looking for. The reason why is sometimes when you read some articles, of people or firms that get themselves in a pickle, you see that senior management is disconnected from these decisions. So if you are applying these type of quality management system or food safety management system, such as the GFSI, in this event we're doing a BRCGS standard, they've clearly put that on there that it has to be signed. So these are based on pushbacks and of course the openness culture that the BRCGS now is offering with their guidance and standards for this process. Now, be communicated to all staff, right? So let's take a look at some of the things I'm going to look for. One is I also look for employee manual, right? Because this is also with HR that sometimes all of the the food safety policy statement or this particular signed off by senior leadership, it's also included there. It's part of maybe the main introduction, the first 2 or 3 pages of the manual, and so it sets the stage and the tempo that the culture of this particular organization is based on BRCGS and food safety and all those other regulatory declaration that your product or process falls under, okay? So communicated by all staff. So we've seen it posted on websites. They actually are proud of it, that they are BRCGS, and they would put it on their website, posted on the lobby. So when you go in, so if you're visiting a facility, you mainly see like either a picture of the founder of the company along with their statement supporting their system. All right. We've seen it posted in cafeteria, so that's another best practices. So then you have your employees that are constantly reminded of the commitment of the company for food safety. Same thing in conference room. This actually tells the visitor that you are committed to your food safety management system. Now, some part of this been presented to us when we're looking at this is also on communicating with the team, that the senior leadership also signs off on who are the food safety team designation, like their HACCP. So they actually have statements, which, these are part of a forms that, that they fill out, or that they want to declare, this is my food safety team, this is my HACCP team, my food defense team, my recall team, etc., etc. So they actually make that a part of it as well. So when they're being audited and they get asked, they have those type of statements from senior leadership. And part of that is organizational chart that's going to be reviewed at this point. Now, on the organizational chart, when you put a team together, make sure you indicate them on the organizational chart of their food safety responsibilities and whatnot. So that's also very nice, especially for some customer requirements. They might not be BRCGS standards that they're auditing against. It could be something similar to other system like an SQF, an FSSE 22000, IFS, etc., that they might ask for it. So in this event, you will have that identified here as well. Food safety objectives, obviously, that will be identified, and then personnel qualification and job description procedures. I'm kind of jumping off on, these are all coming up. So these are some of the things that get looked at. All right, so moving forward now, let's go to the site senior. Let me read the requirement. The site senior management shall define and maintain a clear plan for the development and continuing improvement of a food safety and quality culture. The plan shall include measures needed to achieve a positive culture change. This shall include define activities involving all actions of the site that have an impact on product safety. As a minimum, these activities shall be designed around, and I broke them down, right? One is clear and open communication on product safety. So on this one, what type of system do you have in place, for like your meetings, reporting systems, how do you communicate, right? So this is part of the program when you're putting it together. Are you having a daily meeting, like some of these things that we look at here on these programs are, I'll give you an example. So a facility does a daily meeting on production. So they cover some of these things, including their HACCP discussion, customer complaints, and all other aspect on the quality audit that happened the day before. They do it on a daily basis. Some do it weekly, and some do it monthly, or quarterly, or biannually, or at a minimum annually, having these type of documented discussions. Next part is training, right? So that's a requirement designated around training. Do you have a training or retraining program in place? Like for new employees, new team that's joining, what are their training look like? What about your seasoned staff, right? Do you retrain them every year? Because sometimes we forget to do that. What about our contractors? Are they trained in our GMPs? So we tend to overlook those sometimes. I've seen practices where they just have a manual or 4 or 5 pages of this is what we expect for the contractor, and they send them over and they get signed, but prior to the contractor showing up, or it's actually in the visitor log when they come in and log in and they get escorted, they sign off on that. I've seen practices where there is a 5, 10, 15, 20-minute video that they watch, and we can prepare those for you. YouTube is wonderful, for that. If you have other platform that you're using that, please create them. Now, on training, as a plugin, if you go to interlinkiq.com, look at the HR module. So when you log in, it's free. Click on the HR module. There are trainings there that we can customize for you, where we can automate and digitize all of these training procedures. They can watch a video, they can have a huddle training, they can read something for 2 to 3 minutes, take their comprehension quiz, sign off on it on their phone, on their tablet, or on their desktop. If it's a contractor, you can send them a link, you can put them on there, and it'll capture all that data for you, so then you don't have to worry about it. We can even customize particular videos like this, for that process that has all of your activities and your GMPs and all of the requirements that you have for them to abide by while they're in your facility. So there's a lot of solutions out there, PCQIs, okay? So take a look at those. I know there's a lot of training websites out there, and we've generated our own based on our clients' requirements. So the next part of this is feedback from employees, right? So this one is, so how do you communicate? One of the best, the best practices I've seen on training. We have a client right now that they added an extra wing on their facility where they actually called everybody on, the day before that particular process is going to be introduced, for process flow, personnel's movement into the facility. And they did it in every shift. When they come in, they took, that extra 15 to 30 minutes and kind of discuss all of those things. And one of the nicest thing about that experience is senior management was there, or one of their representative, if it's off hours. They were actually there, discussing their excitement, the growth of the company, and they opened the floor for open discussion of process improvement. And I thought that was super wonderful, where there are no fear from the team to basically raise their hand. And sometimes there's a language barrier and they have an interpreter there or somebody that speak that particular language to be able to interpret, those Q&As. But what I like about it is the fact that senior management can return a milestone for them. So it's just not they're not being ignored. So the question would be, when are we going to have this particular element in our food safety, because we're missing that part of it, and they actually answers it. Okay, that's scheduled for this, or et cetera, et cetera. So those are nice. Those are nice. So if you're having those practices in your facility, thumbs up, buddy. Okay. So the other part on the feedback from employees, suggestion box or inbox, or can somebody report their supervisor, report their peers without retaliation? What does that look like? Or do you strictly just have them, talk to the supervisor? What if there's a language barrier, right? That person can only communicate with another teammates. And, how does that look like? Can that person freely communicate in their, language that they prefer? And do you have the mechanism to get those translated and basically address them, right? So those are the type of things that you're looking at it. Are the submission confidential? Do you have that type of it? Now, in our organization, we put one mobile app for our internal ones, and that our client are beginning to look at, is called the Speak Up module, where if you click on it, you can type, right? We can even get you record yourself if you want, but a lot of it is really just type and text. And then when they send it, it's confidential. We don't know who it came from, and then the client doesn't know it either, because people, from our experience, we find that very freeing, right? Of you can actually, your it's not venting. I wanna emphasize that it's this actual person took time. He or she cares enough to say those things, and we need to embrace that, PCQI, right? Not condemn it, because they're actually committed to your system, but they don't know your openness culture yet, that they can say those openly and not be feared being retaliated as they're putting on a different shift. We've seen these things, right, in our field, and you guys are out there. You can comment and add to those. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly part of trying to voice for food safety, and that's why FISMA's created. But that's another video, and I have some awesome information about you, about our processes when it comes to this part of feedback from employees that are actually in the verbiage of the Food Safety Modernization Act. Okay, So supervisors or management reporting, right? So this part of it, I put it on here. What does that look like, where the supervisor and the managers reports back to the employees, not just to senior management, right? They report back because it was in that meeting minutes, in the previous discussion, maybe months ago, weeks ago, and that person, the supervisor or management, are held accountable to addressing those. So, by the way, we talked about this and this was lacking, and we're going to be fixing it, and then nothing ever happens. It's just rumors, and what does that look like? Let me see. Milestone for these projects, have those discussed, have some ownership of those. So that's what I'm looking at here. And the feedback, right? I just talked about. So, okay, here's the next one. The behaviors required to maintain and improve product safety processes. So on the behaviors required to maintain and improve product safety processes, we talked about open discussion on processes and preventive measures, openness on suggestion on daily activities. Are your team open enough to be able to talk to you or talk to their supervisors, or are they scared that they're going to get fired, right? So that's kind of taking a look at that. And then their behaviors on your food safety system. Is it, what you train them? On previous video, we talked about GMPs and, all of those PPEs and all of that stuff. You just kind of tend to take a look at that. Is it reflecting on the food safety culture? Next part of this is performance measurement of activities related to the safety, authenticity, legality, and quality of products. Now, when you see performance measurement or anything that says measurement on a requirement standards, generally, okay, we're not talking about pH and water activity measures and all of those things, but on this particular part of it says performance measurement. So take a look at your trending program, right? Like you're for trend analysis for your customer complaint, you have those, right? On your product release, programs, so you have those trends that you can take those data points for your quality of your products, for that, and safety of it. Now on authenticity, safety as well is on the testing. You can trend your testing requirements, for that. On the legality part of it is having your validation activity, so you can trend those for validating that if you are a 21 CFR 110 or 21 CFR 117 or 111 or 211. Okay, so basically those are food, HARP-C, dietary supplement, and pharmaceutical, right? So you have all of those, right? That's part of your legality part of it. And then you take a look at where you're going to be exporting it to. Is it this particular product for Canada? Or, is it for Asia or for Europe or for Latin America? So you take a look at that and, can you, show the auditor those countries' requirements and that you're abiding by them, type of stuff. So I inserted the trending tool here, and if you don't have these things, just like I said, we're here to assist you. An action plan indicating how the activities will be undertaken, measured, and the intended timescale. Are these shared with the team? Sometimes, these things needs to be communicated, through training or through meetings and things like that. So all of your action plan, obviously get them documented, get them approved, and then communicate them, to the entire team, sideways, up and down the chain of command, right? A review of the effectiveness of completed activities, okay? Does the senior management reviews these forms and reports and their feedback shared with the team? So the effectiveness, of the review, so you're gonna have some review processes, identify those, so some companies, they have senior management review them weekly or bi-weekly, depending on on your policies. Some are daily, and basically there's some assessment in there, notes and comments for the effectiveness. Like I said, you're talking to your team and you need to document those. Other part here I made a comment on is our new development or new customer requirements or increase in production or facility improvements shared with the team. So I put that there because sometimes, we go to a facility and they're doing attendance improvement or they're expanding and they're growing. but the team doesn't know the entire process of it, and then construction comes in and they're just making a mess of everything. So what does that look like? So what is your policy for those, for those type of improvements? Okay, PCQI, it says the plan shall be reviewed and updated at least annually at a minimum. So your particular program here, as you can see, at least annually, or for me, when changes occur. So if you made a change to it, right, and implement it, so have that documented and have that reviewed as well. And then on your review process, what are you reviewing? So identify that review. Now, some folks, they call them validation measures or verification/validation activities, right? So how do you do that, right? So let me read on here. The site senior management shall ensure that clear objectives are defined to maintain and improve the safety, authenticity, legality, and quality of products manufactured in accordance with the food safety and quality policy and the standard. These objectives shall be, so we're on the objective section, documented and include targets or clear measures of success, clearly communicated to all staff, monitored and results reported at least quarterly to the site senior management and all staff. So as you can see, as we're reading off of this thing, the standard is telling us what to do. Okay. So on this one right here, what I look for if you're performing this is the food safety quality culture survey, if you're doing those. And then there's some best practices here or some open discussion that I'm just going to add. Food safety and quality culture plan. So you need to put one together. Basically, owners and site directors discuss with site managers the activities planned to develop and the current status of the food safety and quality culture plan in place. Activities action plan to develop the food safety culture include activities implemented, measured, and timescales. So, we've discussed those. Hold a conference to communicate to all staff the future planning for growth in the business, the development of a quality culture, and the alignment with the changes in requirement of the food safety and regulatory requirements. So I added that. It's part of the things that we put together. The reason why I said the communication with your team as well, because once you start putting these together, you're gonna have those raised eyebrows, right? It's something new, and for them, they might have been ignored in the past. They needed a piece of equipment or an equipment broke down, and in their mind, you're using duct tape, adhesive tape, zip ties, to keep your equipment together and not fall apart. And they've said that months ago, and it was never taken care of. So be prepared for that, okay, PCQIs. All right, management review meetings attended by the site senior management shall be undertaken at appropriately planned intervals, annually at a minimum, to review the site performance against the standard and objective set in the clause. Now, that's the minimum part of it. It's kind of, the State of the Union meeting where everybody kind of, meet and they discuss all of these things. Now, let's talk about practicality, okay? Worked in this industry and met with countless facilities and, from startups to seasoned, companies, from a team of just a husband and wife that are brand owners, all the way for having a client that has, over 1,000 to 2,000 employees and managing all of these stuff. Sometimes the practicality of it is questioned, okay, or the implementation of that. So there's other tools that you could use. Don't wait till the end of the year and you're chasing the president or the CEO, the owner, the operator, right, of the business and go, Fred, hey, we need to do this because BRC is coming out and, I need you to do this. And he's just looking at you like, what is wrong with you? Right? All right. So one of those are meeting minutes. Okay. Now the meeting minutes, they don't have to be once a year, you guys. Okay. I have food safety meeting minutes where, we only talk about all of those requirements and those categories. Customer complaints, food defense, in this event, BRC system improvements, customer complaints, scars, right? So there's so many things in there, and I'm gonna read some of them off, here shortly, right? And then at the end, they're presented to senior management or the designee, right? So on the meeting minutes, I made it super simple as well, where I put all the department heads, because in my policy I want everybody or their designee, right? Remember, you have a primary, an alternate, and a substitute. There is no excuse for that department not to have a representative in these group meetings. Okay, somebody got COVID, somebody went on vacation, whatever that is, right? They had to drop off the kids to a soccer match. It doesn't matter. You have 3 people, okay, primary, an alternate, and a substitute, that needs to step in, because we're producing products every day. All right, there's no excuse for that. Now you have them sign in, right, and discuss all of the things that needs to be discussed, and here they come. So first is previous management review, action plan, and time frames, right? So have that as part, right, and take notes. So that's the thing. When we're there and we're getting audited, meaning if I'm your PCQI and we are your compliance department during an audit, we're getting audited with you, right? It's no escaping it. We're with you because we help you put all of these together, okay? So we're going to be sitting there and we're going to have all of these things. So, and notes, we have to take notes. That's the whole point of this, because sometimes you have it on there and the auditor's like, okay, he's trusting what you're saying, but he's now going to verify it, right? Remember that, trust and verify. So once you start verifying what you said and you can't prove it, right? Demerit, right? 1 point or minor point. Then it all depends on the category. It could be major points, right? All right, moving on. Results of internal, secondary, and third-party audits. Here you go. So, are those discussed, right? With that. So if you just had an audit, let's say organic, or in this case your BRC, or you had a customer requirement or required on-site audit, and they hired a third-party provider to do that, are those discussed, right? And can you show proof of that all of those have been taken care of? Any objectives that have not been met, to understand underlying reasons. This information shall be used when setting future objectives and to facilitate continual improvement. Okay, so all of those objectives that you haven't performed or will be performing, lay them out, and then use that info as it says, right? Any customer complaints and the results of any customer feedback. So we've discussed that. Now on the customer complaint part of it, I'm sure you're going to refer to your CAPAs at this point, right? Make sure your root cause are identified, and we'll cover that on dealing with CAPAs, okay? So, and that's basically the root cause is what is the real reason, right? You need to go to those, the 5 why, keep asking why, until at the end, that's the real reason that particular process or system failed. That's where you want to get to actually fix the issue, okay? Any incident including both recalls and withdrawals, corrective actions out of specification results, and non-conforming materials. Now, I see this a lot, right? As you can see how difficult this is if you do this annually, right? So depending on your process, like I said, I've seen that this best practice is done during production meetings or pre-production meeting, or your HACCP meeting on a monthly basis or weekly basis. So however you are tracking this requirement, right, put it on this particular program. So when you're writing it, put your procedure. Remember, this is a program, the BRC standard. You chose this program. What are your policy against those standards, okay? And then what are your procedures? So during an audit, they're either gonna look for your policy, you're saying this, but how are you doing it, okay? So you got your SOPs on that. And then after that is your forms. What forms are you using to record these activities so you can show the auditor that you are complying, implementing your procedures and your policy against their program, okay? So that's kind of the, and then of course the training materials, you're going to compile all of that and communicate it through training, right? The effectiveness of the system for HACCP, food defense and authenticity, and the food safety and quality culture plan, right? So you need to take a look at that, right? How do you do that? So effectiveness is validation, right? So you have verification and validation, two different things, okay? Separate video, so we'll get into details on that one. So how do you validate the effectiveness of your HACCP? Do you validate your HACCP annually at a minimum, or when changes occur, or if you have a new product category, are you validating those procedures against your HACCP? Food defense, same thing. How do you perform the effectiveness of food defense? Do you have a food defense challenge? For that, you have a food defense plan. How do you then challenge it? What are they? And there's a lot of different category on challenging your food defense, and we'll go over those as well. And then the authenticity of your materials. How do you do that? Right? Obviously, you're going to be getting them tested. And what are your claims? Are you having your labels reviewed? And all of these things, right? So you need to identify those. Your food safety and quality culture plan, that's another one, right? So how do you validate that? What are the verbiage on that? So right now your mind is going through how do I do that? Okay. So these are more intricate steps, which we're going to be covering on future videos. But if you are considering BRC as your standard, please reach out to us so we can assist you and your team on putting together your PFLs. Okay. And then your resource requirements, that's another one. Okay. What are they for your resource requirements for this? I'll give you an example on resource requirements. Are you going to be using consultants, resources for your suppliers, your service providers, all the way to your emergency use only type of resources, and then other resource requirements. You're looking at equipment, personnel, facility, right? So your standard ones. So make sure you put those in your program as well. Records of the meeting shall be documented and used to revise the objectives, thereby encouraging continual improvement. The decisions and actions agreed within the review process shall be effectively communicated to appropriate staff and action implemented with agreed timescales. The site shall have a demonstrate meeting program which enables food safety, authenticity, legality, and quality issues to be brought to the attention of senior management. These meetings shall occur at least monthly. Okay, so the BRC standard, they have a monthly requirement, but some of these, might be a daily process for you. So just identify that when you're putting this program. So that doesn't mean you have to do this every month and you're gonna wait. Let's say you resolve a customer complaint today, and you're gonna be okay. I'm gonna talk about this at the end of the month, and then at the end of the month you totally forgot about it, right? So hit them, document them, put them in your program. So during an audit, when you get audited, remember, they just have to be done. You heard me read it of the requirements, shall occur at least monthly. The word at least, okay, is there. Now, some of the things I've talked about on some meeting minutes, I'll repeat them again. Food safety team meeting minutes, they could be weekly or monthly on your food safety meeting minutes. And then I've also included HACCP HACCP meeting minutes. So if you have a HACCP coordinator, if you're a HACCP system, and there's also, we're going to do a video between HACCP versus food safety plan process between FDA and USDA type of requirements. So anyway, so you have all of those things, right, for your meeting minutes that you can customize to meet that standard. And then next one is the company shall have a confidential reporting system to enable staff to report concerns relating to product safety, authenticity, legality, and quality. So this was brought up in the previous one, right? Now it's actually written out on the requirements for confidential reporting system. So what does that look like? We talked about it, right? You have just a special phone number that they can call, leave a message. That's also been a good practice. Email, is there a general email that it goes in? Or if you have a system, an internal system where somebody can just click and then type in, it's basically like a contact us scenario, right? And it just goes in and you would have that information, and it's confidential. Retaliation, What type of policy do you have on that? I know I've discussed that, so check with HR, for that process. Because what happens is, and we've seen this happen in plants, and we get phone calls sometimes. All of a sudden FDA knocks on the door because an employee just got frustrated, right? So they would call the anonymous line with FDA and leave a message, and next thing you know, somebody's knocking at the door asking the same questions that were ignored before. So prevent that. Okay. Supervisor management reporting. I know I've mentioned this as well, going back and forth with senior management receiving it. They're communicated to the board, to the president, whatnot. What does that look like? And then supervisor management, giving that feedback to the team so they know they were not ignored. Okay. The mechanism, example, the relevant telephone number, which we talked about. So I'm going to read on the requirements here. The mechanism for reporting concerns shall be clearly communicated to staff. The company senior management shall have a process for assessing any concern raised. Records of the assessment and where appropriate action taken shall be documented. All right, so that's very important. They actually listed it out right there, what you need to do. The company senior management shall provide the human and financial resources required to produce safe, authentic, legal products of the specified quality and compliance with the requirements of these standards. Right. So on this part of it, sometimes, we look at resources, it's just not about, okay, I have, as the owners or, the powers to be, okay, you have a facility, you have the equipment and utensils, we're talking about other stuff as well in meeting these type of standards. Do you have enough room? Right, for the production that you're choosing, right? So is the facility crowded? Are you going to expand on it for different processes? So that's a commitment. What about GMPs, right? Supporting all of your consumables, PPEs and training of personnel, right? Sometimes we overlook that. I've been to a facility where they count the gloves, right? And they have preventive measure for it's a cost-cutting measures on these, which are the biggest contaminants in my opinion, touching everything and moving it from A to Z to B to D to D, and all of a sudden I go in there and they're like, oh, we're only issued 3 gloves, first after lunch, and then I'm like, what? Okay, so PCQ, I pay attention to these things, right? And you need to make these observations and discuss this with senior management, or have them watch this video, okay? So, or videos such as mine. And for me, the reason why I'm putting this out there, I have seen good intentions goes bad quick, right? Because that's the mentality of it. You have, facility operators where they're on the bottom line, which is, it's a business, I get it, but you're serving it to the public. I've always asked, would you let your kids, your family, eat what you make, right? The way you process it. Would you do that next month? Would you do that next year if your shelf life is 1 year, right? So things like that, right? So it's just common sense stuff. So, but anyways, so take a look at those. So GMPs, right? Take a look at equipment we mentioned, and utensils. Sometimes you don't have enough equipment or the proper equipment, and there are some suggestions out there. So make sure your equipment and utensils that you're going to use conform, right, to your process and into the requirements, okay? Processing aids, that's another one that that we need to commit to on that. Those type of things that we need to help to aid on the processes of our system or what we're making, and not just on the materials part, you guys, right? We're talking about what if we don't have enough people? Can we get short staff? What does that look like? Is that supported? We don't have enough knowledge in one certain part. Does the PCQI or the QA director or whoever that's in charge, are they authorized to commission somebody to come in and fill that gap in a short amount of time because of the knowledge gap? Okay, so, and then training. Now, for whatever reason, training is in the rear of everything, right? We need to change that when we're changing culture, because chaos are created for lack of training, and it's costly. So either you invest in training, or the lack of training is just going to completely fail your business. Okay. Personnel requirements, I put it on there. We talked about short staffing or staffing needs. Or if you have a gap in personnel. I know the labor force is tight. Not a lot of folks prefer working in our industry because of the hard work, the environment, and the shift. Especially if you're in the food business, everybody has to eat. As you can see during the pandemic, the team it's on site, they're essential, right? You don't want our food system to collapse. But are we supported by the company, right, for that? So, okay, moving on. The company senior management shall have a system in place to ensure that the site is kept informed of and reviews the scientific and technical development, industry codes of practice, new risk to authenticity of raw materials, all relevant legislation in the country where the product will be sold or where known, all right? Now, some of the techniques here on this part, as a PCQI, register with FDA and USDA their notification on recalls, warning letters, any other guidelines. When you see that thing pop up, sign, put your email address. It's free, you guys, right? So when you get these notification, and then read them, okay? They might not make sense to you right now, but then all of a sudden, there's going to be an incident or circumstance in the facility where what you read and what's in here and what is happening, they're all interlinked. All of a sudden, everything's interconnecting, and you're like, oh, you have that moment. I read that somewhere, right? And then that's when the learning starts, and that's how it works. So register for those alerts and notices. Review the warning letters and recalls, right? So when you see these, review them. We have a warning letter segment in our videos, as well as recalls, where we kind of break down some of those programs that had failed for other facilities, so we can then do a self-assessment in our own system of why that happened. There's a lot of things out there, like, for example, allergen. Right, you see a recall. Number one, how expensive that is, PCQIs, right? To recall those materials from the market. It does several things to a company. The reputation of the brand or the facility, right, or the firm. Okay, it's in question right away. Okay, they have that, right? It's nice they voluntarily recalled it or withdrew it in the market. Perfect, right? But let's look at the cost part of that. Contact us. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs. Have a good one.